investors as clients. They use vast amounts of information to predict the world in a few years or decades, and analyze where to move money to win. I see, so you can see the future from the flow of money. We live in a cruel world where you'll be cut off if your predictions are wrong, so wishful thinking doesn't work at all. It's a tough world. There is a Japanese person who has survived in such a world for 30 years. That person is Hitoshi Saito. For 30 years. That's amazing. Saito is a co-founder of the Observatory Group, based in Washington, D.C. What kind of track record does he have? He accurately analyzed the Abenomics market in 2012 and brought George Soros a profit of $1 billion. $1 billion, about 147 billion yen. George Soros is a legendary figure, along with Jim Rogers, one of the world's 3 biggest investors. Is he advising such a person? Moreover, Saito publishes a highly toxic newsletter worth tens of millions of yen per year. Tens of millions of yen per year. Is it still widely disseminated? It is being disseminated by institutional investors and government officials all over the world. Does that mean the information is that valuable? So what does Saito have to say about Japan? In a book he published in 2024 called When the World Order Changes, he wrote some shocking things. What is it about? Japan has a once-in-a-decade chance to achieve greatness. He famously said that the revival of a strong Japan is about to begin. Well, many Japanese people think that Japan is doomed right now. Many people certainly feel that way. But Mr. Saito's analysis is different. If you look at the global trends, Japan is primed for recovery. That's right. If Japan can find a place in that market, it will definitely make a comeback, he analyzes. What's the basis for that? Mr. Saito's prediction isn't a hope or a wish, it's the result of analyzing all sorts of complex factors, including the situation in each country, the balance of power, technological progress, economic conditions, population distribution, and climate change. I see. So it's a comprehensive analysis. In fact, major Chinese companies have begun investing in Japan. TSMC's Kumamoto factory, Microsoft's large-scale investment, and Oracle, Amazon, and Google's data center construction rush. I've certainly seen a lot of news like that lately. It's proof that they've found a way to win in Japan. But Mr. Saito says that the awareness of the Japanese people themselves is lagging the most. Marissa, there's an important point that Mr. Saito points out. What is it? It's that the global trend is changing dramatically. It's a shift from small government to big government. From small government to big government. What does that mean? Small government is a neoliberal idea that minimizes the role of government and leaves everything to market principles. Free competition. But that neoliberalism is starting to collapse. The Trump phenomenon, the UK's exit from the EU, the US-China conflict. These are all reactions to neoliberalism. I see. So big government is an idea where the government actively supports industry and the public and private sectors work together to advance national strategy. Japan has always been good at that. That's it, is what Mr. Saito is focusing on, that Japan's strengths, namely stability, harmony, and potential, are becoming the new global standard. Does that mean that the global standard is catching up to Japan? That's exactly right. Overseas elites are quick to realize that Japan is winning and are starting to invest. What kind of value is that, specifically? First of all, Japan is the least divided country in the world. In the United States, the top 10% own 79% of the total assets, but in Japan it's only about 41%. It's true that Japan's society is stable because there is less division compared to other countries when it comes to inequality. In addition, the tragic equal distribution occurred as a result of continuing to protect employment through the on-the-job employment system. The tragic equal distribution is a situation where instead of layoffs, everyone's salary is cut, and no one is fired, but no one's salary increases. Is that the cause of the lost 30 years? In the coming era of big government, the government needs to actively support industry. What exactly does government support for industry mean? For example, reviving reactionary industries or investing in AI and data centers. In both the United States and China, the governments invest funds in education to develop strategic industries. It's true that industrial policy at the national level is becoming important. That's where collaboration between government and business becomes important. Japan has long had a culture of cooperation between the government and business, so it has a great advantage in this new era. I see. So weaknesses can be turned into strengths. Furthermore, Japan's low productivity is actually room for growth. Japan's service productivity is 60% of that of the United States. If we could just raise this to 80%, we could expect a 20% increase. When you think about it that way, there is certainly room for growth. But the biggest problem is the mindset of the Japanese themselves. There are too many people who believe that Japan is a dead end. There is certainly that kind of atmosphere. The popularity of the word parent is also a manifestation of the resignation that hard work will not be rewarded. Many people feel that there is no point in trying hard. But Saito says that if a situation were created where hard work would be rewarded, this atmosphere would change completely. People certainly change when they see hope. In fact, investors around the world believe in Japan's potential and have begun making large-scale investments. But why are only the Japanese unaware? It's because they have been sitting in a losing chair for a long time. They have lost sight of their own chances of winning. A losing chair? What does that mean? To understand that, you need to understand how the world's game works. Marissa Saito uses a very easy-to-understand analogy in When the World Order Changes. What kind of analogy is it? It's about casino owners all over the world. Casino owners? According to Saito, the world economy is like a giant casino. And there are owners who run those casinos. Who is that? The current owner of the casino is the United States. It used to be Britain, the Samuel Revolutionary, but since World War II it has been the United States. So what does the owner do? They set the rules of the game and decide which country gets to sit in the winning chair and which gets to sit in the losing chair. I see. So what about Japan? It's clear if you look at Japan's history. After the war, they were put in the losing chair. But when the threat of the Soviet Union emerged, they were moved to the winning chair. That was the period of high economic growth and the bubble economy. But when the Cold War ended and Japan's GDP caught up to that of the United States, they were put in the losing chair again, and the lost 30 years began. So what about now? This time, China is aiming for America's position. In other words, they're aiming for the position of casino owner. Is China trying to become the owner? But there's no way America would give it up that easily. That's why America is trying to put China in the losing chair. I see. So where will Japan sit? That's the important point. America needs a strong Japan to keep China in check. So now the trend is to put Japan in the driver's seat. Oh, so that brings us to the story of Japan's revival. According to Mr. Saito's analysis, there are two reasons why the US can win against China in a long-term war. What are those reasons? The first is China's rapidly aging population. 24% of the world's elderly people over 65 are Chinese. 24%. That's a huge percentage. If the war becomes a long-term war, China will have to spend money on measures to deal with its aging population. That will lead to a huge increase in economic growth. I see. The second reason is technology. The US is working with the G7 to thoroughly prevent technology from reaching China. What exactly are they doing? Export restrictions on advanced countermeasures and supercomputers. It's also becoming more difficult for Chinese students to study at elite American universities. Is this a technology enclosure? Yes, they're trying to crush China's technological confidence. But this has increased one risk. What risk? A. Taiwan emergency. China knows that a long-term war is disadvantageous, so the analysis shows that the risk is increasing year by year. It's true that tensions around Taiwan have been rising recently. In fact, it's been said that the sanctions imposed on Russia during its invasion of Ukraine were a test case for applying them to China. Huh? Is that true? According to Saito's analysis, the reason Russia was shut out of the international payment system so smoothly was because they had prepared in advance, and they were simulating sanctions on China. Russia is an energy exporter, so it was able to withstand it, but China is an energy importer, so if the same thing were to happen, it would be in a much tougher situation, according to his analysis. I see. So that's why Japan's importance is increasing? Yes. There's a line of sea called the first line of defense, and this is becoming extremely important as a deterrent to China. So it's the intellectual value of Japan's inferiority? Exactly. That's why America is now shifting its strategy to putting Japan in the winning position. This is the mechanism for Japan's revival that Saito analyzes. Marissa, there's something I'm curious about regarding recent natural phenomena. Natural phenomena? You mean the earthquake in Kamchatka? Yes, in addition to the magnitude 7 earthquake, abnormal weather has been occurring repeatedly in various parts of the world. It's true that I've been thinking a lot about the weather news lately. In fact, these phenomena may not be just a coincidence. What do you mean? Looking back at history, major turning points in civilization often coincide with major changes in the natural world. Is there a connection between changes in civilization and natural phenomena? For example, the decline of the Roman Empire was accompanied by a large-scale volcanic eruption, and there were a series of major earthquakes around the time of the Meiji Restoration. There are such coincidences. In Mr. Saito's analysis this time, He says that a major change in the world order is about to occur. He's talking about the collapse of neoliberalism and the desire for big government. Yes, it may not be a coincidence that confidence and abnormal weather are occurring at such times. But scientifically, there may be no connection. It's true that a direct causal relationship cannot be proven, but people have been linking natural phenomena to social changes since ancient times. There is such a way of thinking in the world of fortune-telling and prophecy. In particular, Japan is a place where people excel intellectually and spiritually. A place where people excel. It's a rare place in the world where the Pacific Plate, Philippine Sea Plate, North American Plate, and Eurasian Plate intersect. 4 plates overlapping? Yes, geologically speaking, it's a special place where the energy of Japan concentrates. That's why they're so confident. But that energy may be the source of Japan's power. Japan has been called the land of the gods since ancient times. That's certainly an expression. It may play a role like a gold mine for the world. That's why Japan may waver when the world changes drastically. I see. So they're in sync. In a sense, the results of this recent Sanin War may be part of this great change. So political changes and natural phenomena are linked. The rise of conservative forces and the decline of liberal forces. This also coincides with the change in global trends. Certainly, similar political changes are occurring in various parts of the world. The Trump phenomenon and Britain's withdrawal from the EU are all part of the same trend of backlash against neo-independence. So are the earthquakes happening now also part of that great change? It's possible. In ancient China, there was a concept called the correlation between heaven and man, which believed that the movements of the emperor and changes in human society were linked. There is such a way of thinking in the idea of investment. The Japanese are a people with a similar sensibility. It is a culture that does not separate nature from human activities. That is also a characteristic of the Japanese. That is why Japan may be playing an important role at this time. It has the role of maintaining balance as the world's gold mine. This is getting a bit spiritual. But isn't it interesting that Mr. Saito's realistic analysis coincides with this kind of intuitive aspect? It certainly feels like they are heading towards the same conclusion from both directions. Marissa, we have looked at Mr. Saito's analysis so far, but is there still an important point remaining? Is there anything else? What point is it? The biggest key to Japan's revival is actually the consciousness of the Japanese people themselves. Consciousness? That's right. The elites around the world have realized the value of Japan and are starting to invest, but only the Japanese themselves don't believe in their own value. It is true that there are many people who think that Japan is doomed. That is exactly what Mr. Saito is pointing out. Japan has room for growth in productivity and social stability. But the key is the awareness to make use of it. It's a problem of awareness, huh? But why have the Japanese lost confidence? It's because they've been sitting in a losing chair for a long time. During the last 30 years, the Japanese lost sight of their own value. It's true that they were in a bad state for 30 years after the collapse of the bubble economy. But in reality, Japan managed to protect jobs during those 30 years. They didn't lay off anyone, but everyone took pay cuts. That's right. It was an equal distribution of tragedy, but social stability was maintained. Looking back, that might have been one of Japan's strengths. Countries like South Korea that couldn't protect jobs adapted to neoliberalism, but the gap also widened. There are pros and cons to both, I guess. But now it's time for the Japanese way to have the advantage. Saito says that if we get to a point where hard work is rewarded, this atmosphere will change completely. People certainly change when they see hope. In fact, the change has already begun. The world's major corporations are killing Japan. There's a rush to build Microsoft data centers at TSMC. They see a clear path to victory for Japan. And yet, only the Japanese don't realize it. What a waste. The important thing is not to wait for external evaluations, but to realize that they have won. An inner awakening, huh? Yes, Japan is already on the path to recovery. All that's left is for the Japanese people to change their mindset. But how do we change their mindset? It starts with knowing the facts. How does the world see Japan? What are Japan's true strengths? Information like this is important. And each and every one of us needs to work hard and be positive. It's been said that if a factory opens in a town, everyone from the ramen shop to the dry cleaner will benefit. A positive cycle will be created, huh? That's exactly what we need to do if this kind of positive way of thinking spreads throughout Japan. If each and every person's mindset changes, Japan as a whole will change. Hey, Reimu, after hearing this story, I thought it was really strange that the elites from all over the world are watching Japan, but only the Japanese don't realize their own value. That's right. Just as Saito Hitoshi analyzed, the world is definitely changing. From the collapse of neoliberalism to the era of big government, and the trend is for Japan to become more active. But the most important thing is the consciousness of us Japanese people. It's important to wake up to our own victory rather than waiting for external evaluations. The revival has certainly begun. Yes. All that's left is